Hello, my name is Michael Finney. Today we have Phil Gerbyshak joining us on the program. Do you want to introduce yourself and give us a little background on what you do?
Sure. So, I'm Phil Gerbyshak. I live in a city called Winter Garden just outside Orlando, Florida, with a wife and 2 kids and 2 dogs. And I work with small businesses, financial services professionals, insurance folks, so all those folks to really leverage and integrate digital, so social selling, LinkedIn, video, all of that, into their existing business, whether it's with marketing or whether it's with their sales process. I kind of combine those two and help make those a lot more sensible and a lot more profitable.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your background and how you fell into this line of work?
Sure. So in, 2005, 2004, LinkedIn was starting to be big. I actually was using a platform called Plaxo that automatically updated all of my contact records when people moved jobs, because that was a hard thing. Well, LinkedIn and Twitter and all those came along, and bugs came along, and I was like, hey, this is pretty cool. And at the time, I thought I was going to be a leadership guy. I was a VP of IT, did a lot in the leadership space. Well, as it came along, my financial advisors were asking me, dude, how do I use this to grow my business? How do I use this to connect with my customers? How do I use this to earn referrals? So it pivoted into that. And then, I do a lot of speaking, a lot of research, and I sell. I still do sales myself. So I'm out in the field selling, kind of, I guess, knocking on virtual doors, if you will, and trying to build relationships doing that. So it's kind of that confluence of tech person meets salesperson meets people who have a need. And here we are today.
Yeah, very good. Do you remember, this is actually just an aside, but do you remember that app called Card Munch before LinkedIn?
Of course, absolutely.
That thing was so fantastic.
Yep, of course, it was a great tool. Yeah, it was a great tool. Absolutely, I do.
Probably one of the best networking tools that I remember.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I was a big fan.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the current state of media? You're a media person. You're a content creator. You do live streams. What do you think?
Well, the current state of media, I think, is still very new on the digital side for many people, not for everybody. I mean, news sources have picked up and embraced media, the digital side pretty well. But I think for a lot of folks, they're still very hesitant to get on video and to produce their own, or they're really hesitant to, produce their own podcast because they think it's difficult. So I think we're, and Tom Webster talks about this at length. If you're a geek and you want numbers in the infinite dial with Edison Research, he says about 53% of people only are admit to having listened to a podcast. And I would bet less have listened or watched a video for business. Not like, hey, I want to find a how-to video on YouTube. I think that's pretty much, 90% of people have probably done that at some point, or watched a cat video or something like that. But I think an educational, informative business type video, I think that number probably, less than half. So I think there's still a lot of growth opportunity there. I think people also really like to read still online, maybe not books, but short form, be they tweets, be they status updates of things, just text or text, frankly, over the top of video. I think uncaptioned video is a lost opportunity for many folks. So I think giving people the opportunity to both watch a video, listen to a video, as well as read a video, I think is super important. And I think will only become more important as time goes by.
Yeah, I would agree with a lot of that perspective. The way that we connected initially was with your book, right? Make It Great.
Yep. Mm-hmm. 10 Ways to Make It Great. Yeah, you got it. Yeah,
that was just an excellent book. It really kind of serves as a blueprint for the project, that we're recording for now. Definitely highly influential in terms of just giving me a roadmap on how to put ideas together, little pieces of blocks of ideas, and build them up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I wrote that in 2006, and it's interesting how as much has changed since 2006, as much is still very much the same.
Are we going to see a follow-up?
Yeah, for sure. So this 2022, I guess, we call it, or 2022, depending how you say it. I don't know that it's exactly a follow-up, but it's more of a primer for digital and virtual selling. So that'll be out by the end of Q1. I'm not 100% sure yet on the title, which is really weird because, the first chapter in 10 Ways to Make Great is begin at the end and work towards today. But I think I don't know yet if the title is Social Selling Essentials or if it's going to be Virtual Selling Essentials. And I say that because for me personally, I see no difference between virtual and social selling. I think everything is social and everything is virtual. I mean, but that being said, I have to see which one is getting more search volume. And frankly, maybe I do two books and they're very similar, not exactly the same, because that would be kind of against Amazon's rules, but very similar, where one is virtual and one is social, and see which one wins out. But I think, that was a long answer to your short question of, yes, there will be a sequel. It won't exactly be a sequel, but it'll definitely be the next book. And actually, Michael, that's book 6 for me.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So do you convert that stuff into other media formats as well?
Absolutely. So it'll definitely be an audiobook. It'll definitely be a Kindle book, as well as a physical book. And then I will cut up chapters and turn that into things that I can share on social in little bits and bytes. I'm actually going to be experimenting with a tool called Lately.ai, which is a really cool tool to cut up even podcasts or videos into more digestible chunks, because as much as people are, I think, doing more short form, the key is short form. They want less before they want more. So I'm absolutely going to be doing that with the book and really with everything that I'm doing. You'll see 2022 on all my social media outlets be more bite-sized stuff, and there'll still be the long stuff. Don't be fooled. I love long form. I love 30, 45, 60-minute conversations, but I think it's important to give people a bite-sized chunk, so if they only have 2 or 4 minutes, they still can get value.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's turn to this project, right? What do you like about the 10-step program in general? As somebody who has seen and kind of watched the project develop before it was released, and as I am getting ready to now release the video course that I developed using basically all of the content from the book, and then added in some new things, built up some other assets to shore it up and fill in the gaps.
Well, I think anytime you can do something that is 10 steps, I think it's very approachable. That's the first thing for folks. I think people need to be able to get something, again, that's digestible. I mean, if you had 27 steps, it's too much. And if you had just 3 steps, well, frankly, Michael, that's not very believable. I think it's important that you have, a series of steps that build on themselves over time. And so your book absolutely does that, and really important to think about things as a step-by-step building process. So whether it's a book or whatever, I think a blueprint is helpful. And when I think about what is the most helpful thing that you've got, I would tell you every chapter, has a challenge. Every chapter has something you can actually do, not just learn. And I love that. I think that, to your point, right, that's how I wrote my book. And that's not why I believe that that's a great format. I believe that's a great format because learn and then implement, learn and then take a step, I think is super critical to your success. So the more that you can do that, the better. If I were to say, put me in a spot here, what's the most important thing that anybody does? First, I'd say they're all important, but if you really put me close, I'd say, chapter 4 on events is super, super important, because if you're not building a network, if you're not attending events, it's a one at a time thing, and it's really, really hard. Events are the way to turbocharge any of that networking, any of that connection, whether they're online or offline. LinkedIn has events now. You can see who's available, who signed up and said, yep, I'm attending that event. And then you can network with them, even if they're outside your network. I think that's super powerful. It's way better for me to see 166 people that I have something in common with which is I attended this event, or 17 people, hey, we attended a course together, or 36 people, hey, we went to something together, we did something together, some event, than it is to just go out to the world and have nothing in common. So I think that's super powerful, and I love that you focused on events, Michael.
Thank you. Like I said, I was not blowing smoke when I said I really used your book as a blueprint for what I was doing here. I started writing this before I started doing my other book projects, so it was like something that I had on the back burner, and then I realized that I wanted to be able to utilize some of my own internal examples to point at, and finally had those things in place and was able to release this. But it's been sitting on a Dropbox paper file for, I don't know, 3-4 years probably now, as it's developed, and then getting proofread and getting some beta readers, getting some beta viewers on the video course and stuff now. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I appreciate everything you're saying. So
Absolutely.
What do you think the future holds in terms of yourself, media, anything?
Ooh. So I was going to start with media, and then I guess I'll talk to me, because they really are together. I think for media, I think we're going to see more micro networks. The Facebooks of the world are no longer going to rule. Now, there'll still be a place for that. There'll still be a place where you get 500 million people together. Absolutely. But I think the juice, and Facebook, Meta, whatever you want to call them, I think would agree with this. LinkedIn would agree with this. Twitter is seeing the same thing. Instagram now allows a lot of this, and that is these micro networks, these smaller groups of people. Let's maybe even call them events, if you will, Michael.
Sure.
Of events that are regularly scheduled or impromptu scheduled, like a Twitter chat, like Twitter Spaces, like the fact that on Instagram I can create groups of people that I share things with, like a Facebook group, like a LinkedIn group, like a Discord server with a channel on that, Facebook's workplace app, any of those, they're smaller chunks of a bigger whole. And I think that is going to be the future. And when I think about that for me and how that plays into me, well, part of that is I need to do a better job of chunking up my content, so that depending on where you are along your process could be where you plug in with me and my network and the smart people in my circle. So I think we're going to see, both myself as well as the media, we're going to see that that's in more smaller chunks. We're going to see more events, whether they're impromptu or regularly scheduled, that people are going to take part in, and we'll find that affinity. Chris Brogan and Julian Smith talked about this in Trust Agents years ago. Your goal is to get as many small circles as you can together of things that you have in common with people. And I think that's going to be even more important. I think Chris and Julian were ahead of their time when they mentioned that in Trust Agents. But now, especially as people are trusting less and less the Facebook as a whole, or they're believing it less and less, or they're polarized more and more, I think that's going to be even more important that we have those smaller groups, because we still want to talk, right? Like, we still want to connect, and we still want to find those things in common. I think we just may not want to do them with the entire world. We want to do it with smaller groups of people that we know, like, and trust.
I agree with that. As an aside on this too, so have you been using Twitter Spaces or Clubhouse at all?
I've used Clubhouse some. I've been on a few shows. I haven't really participated as much as I could, primarily because until they actually let us record and replay those, it made Clubhouse not really a place that I want to be. I think the record and repurpose is super important. Now, I understand the impermanence of it, but I don't have time to produce content that's not going to live on and is not going to get sliced up and that nobody's going to hear. So that's where my challenge has always been.
So I would say that I'm pretty sure they are doing replay and stuff like that now. So you might...
They are now.
Yeah, you might take a look at that. And I feel like those kind of like what is social audio right now is probably a fantastic platform for you in general.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm definitely. Yeah, in the new year, I'm spending the last couple of weeks of the year really heads down, looking at what do I want to be when I grow up? Where do I want to be? You ask me about the future. I know kind of what it looks like, but frankly, I don't know exactly what it looks like. And I want to paint in some more of the numbers around some of the stuff that I've seen and figure out exactly where I go in the future.
Sounds great. Well, thank you for joining me. That's everything I have today. If there's anything that you want to say or any statements that you think are important to add here, this is the chance to do that.
Well, I would say, if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, I'd like to learn more from Phil or from smart people who like Michael, I would encourage you, search out Gerbycast, Gerbycasts. Gerbycast, that's my podcast. It comes out once a week on the audio, or you can find I go live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube a couple times a week with smart folks. And, just take part in that. And if you attend live, the great part is you can still ask questions. I do my best to answer all the questions that people ask during the conversation that I have with smart folks. And if not, then I make sure that I cover those off after the event. So search for Gerbycast and you'll find it.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining me, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.